There are plenty of scary thoughts to keep you up at night. Fears of a third world war, how you'll get through an entire Thanksgiving dinner listening to your crazy liberal family members. I don't know how you're going to do that. Or if you're Biden, there's this.
Nowhere is that more true than when it comes to climate. Every economy around this table faces this challenge. It's the only existential threat to humanity. We either get this right or there's not going to be a whole lot of people around to talk about it.
But according to The Economist, the thing that should scare you the most, Donald Trump. It has declared he, quote, poses the biggest danger to the world in 2024. Here now to react, Forbes Media Chairman and Editor-in-Chief Steve Forbes and Fox Business anchor David Asman. Steve, to you first on this. This reads like it was written by Joe Biden's campaign. Threat to democracy. If I hear that one more time, I'm going to punch somebody in the nose.
Well, they are the threat in the sense that they're just looking at the old way of looking at things. For example, one of their big things is he's going to make inflation worse by cutting taxes. Now, I'm old enough to remember when they said that about Ronald Reagan in the late 70s and early 80s. Well, he cut taxes, stabilized the dollar, deregulated, cut spending into domestic spending, slowed it down. Guess what? We had one of the greatest booms in American history. So more of those kind of threats, bring them on.
So, David, to Steve's point, Donald Trump believes in free enterprise.
Right,
like, that's a
right.
threat, and he believes in decentralizing Washington, giving people power back in the states and municipalities.
You know, I'm old enough to remember when The Economist actually stood up for those things. And they have trouble finding something wrong with him. In fact, they talk about how his first term was actually better than expected, et cetera. But then they say, but a second term would be different because the world has changed. Well, the world has changed because Biden is now president. And because Trump is, they say about the voters of America that they have been manipulated by Donald Trump. No, the voters of America are looking at the two presidencies and saying, look, the economy was humming under President Trump. The border was secure. Streets were safer. The world was safer. I mean, there wasn't a new war when Donald Trump was president. So they're making a decision. Yes, they may not like the way he talks. They didn't like the way he tweeted back then. But the bottom line is the world and America were safer and more prosperous, and they don't get that.
To quote Margaret Thatcher, do I smell appeasement, the nauseating stench of appeasement? That's Joe Biden. In one word, Iran. Would Trump have done what Biden did on Iran and started all of this? Absolutely not. Go
Absolutely
ahead,
not. All right. Meanwhile, what's the hot new trend to offload student loan debt? Well, file for bankruptcy. The Justice Department reporting a 32% increase in borrowers opting for bankruptcy compared to pre-pandemic cases. You know, Steve, it used to be hard to discharge your student loan debt. Biden helped change the rules, and now you can discharge that debt in bankruptcy, and kids are doing it.
Well, the sad thing is they have a bad example at the top, talking about bankrupting a country in the sense continued spending, which eventually that spending has to be financed, which means selling bonds, which means the Federal Reserve prints money to buy those bonds. So right now they're glorying in the fact that the rate of increase has come down somewhat. Well, when you hurt the economy, yes, prices will go down. But we should have learned from the 1970s, which Reagan did, is that if you don't afterwards have pro-growth measures like a stable dollar, like tax cuts, you're just going to be in the same rut again. So they don't learn. So we need a new education policy, sending these people to re-education camps. Look at the 1980s. Look at the 20s. Things work. 4,000 years. They haven't learned anything about inflation. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
And it shouldn't be on the taxpayers. I mean, that's the extraordinary thing. The guy who's ahead of it is an old friend of yours, Rich Cordray. He used to be head of the Consumer Financial Safety Protection Bureau, which he railed against for the good reason.
No, he's not my friend.
No, he tried to keep him out of there. He tried to keep. But the colleges should pay for this. The colleges that made promises that they couldn't keep to the parents and the students about providing a good education that would provide them with with a better income than they would get otherwise instead of put them in bankruptcy. The colleges should pay. We see what Harvard and Yale and Columbia and others are saying about what's happening in the Middle East right now. We realize that the education that they're getting is a lie. It's not a good education, and you're paying a fortune for it. And these colleges should be forced to pay for that debt, not taxpayers.
And I agree with that, and that's why the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is unconstitutional, I dislike that. However, they should use the CFPB to go after the schools that are giving bogus degrees that kids can't make enough money to pay their loans back. That is right for the CFPB to look at.
Yeah, the whole thing in student loans is a backdoor way of subsidizing universities to do crazier and crazier things.
Oh,
look at the size of their administration versus those actually in the classroom doing the fake teaching now.
Right.
The ratio's all screwed up.
It's all messed
Biden
up.
wiped away $127 billion in student loan debt. That's on top of the student loan moratorium. That all-encompassing was $419 billion in student loan forgiveness. So added up, it's about $550 billion in student loan debt that just went poof.
Thank you, China, for borrowing that money. Steve and David, always a pleasure. Thank you guys for joining us.
Good to see you both.
Appreciate it. All right.